Hello, my name is Sushil Jha, and I'm here to make a presentation on the relationship between music, language, codes, and a bit of literature. So let me tell you about a little bit about my background. My presentation is about music, codes, literature. I'm a writer by profession, and I'm doing my PhD in comparative literature from Washington University in St. Louis. I'm in the track called Writers for International track, which is partly my PhD is like a part creative writing and part academic thesis. When I came to St. Louis, I met Paul Gazzardo, and he introduced me to the Imrat Khan archives. And I also got to know that Imrat Khan used to teach at Washu. He was a music teacher here, and he's a very well-known sitar and surbahar player of India. I have a like interest as anyone else. Like as a good listener, I have interest in Indian classical music, but more than that, I was interested in the literature, and I was trying to find a rhythm in my writing, the way I write. And then this whole idea of digital humanities and the codings came into the literature, which is like 10 years ago. So I was trying to see like these things came in my mind, like music is there, literature is there, how to write. That question was always back in the back of my mind, and then coding. So it got very confusing. And at that moment, when I started listening to some of the lectures by from the archive of Paul Gazzardo, the archive of Imrat, I realized that there is some kind of relationship between writing or the language and the codes and the music, like especially Indian classical music. So this is my presentation is all about that. Just because I'm a writer or the writing profession or the literature, I'll start with uh, a quote by Borges. We know that if you're interested in literature, Borges, you cannot do much away from Borges. So this is a quote from his story, The Library of Babel. And it runs like this. The library is a sphere whose exact center is any hexagon and whose circumference is unattainable. Each wall of each hexagon is furnished with 5 bookshelves. Each bookshelf holds 32 books, identical in format. Each book contains 410 pages, each page 40 lines, each line 8 black letters, and it goes on and on and on. The point I'm trying to make is like in a library or in a book, everything is arranged in certain way, in certain style, and that makes sense, like the word how the words are arranged in a literary text, or how sounds are arranged in a musical text, or how codes are arranged in a computer coding or in a blockchain or in any kind of computer programming. So I explored a bit more, and then because my basic question was like how to write better, how to because there's always there's this concept of rhythm is always there. Like whatever you do, if it makes you feel better or makes you feel good, if you're listening to anything, watching any film, so there is some kind of rhythm into that, whether it is a visual medium, audio medium, or a writing or the medium of words. There is a rhythm, and the quest for someone like me is to how to find that rhythm. So I started reading, and then through music, I realized this whole idea of music comes from the Vedas. Like those who are interested in Indian texts know that the Veda is the one of the most ancient texts in Indian civilization, and it was not written in the beginning. The Vedas were not written. So to give you a little context, there are 4 Vedas. Some like the oldest one is Rig Veda, which is about it has like mantras to it, like invocation for different gods for different things. Like if you want something from the god, you chant this mantra. But this mantras or the shlokas or like richas we call, how to chant these things, that comes another Veda, Sam Veda. So Sam Veda is considered as like Rig Veda set to the music, how to chant the Rig Vedic verses. And Sam Veda is important for the purpose of this presentation because it is said that the Indian classical music came from the Sam Veda. So how you put certain words or certain sounds or certain sounds into some kind of a music or some kind of an incantation or some kind of a repetition, how you speak those words to create that effect which will go to the god and god will be happy. So And then there are the two Vedas called Yajur Veda, which is like how the rituals, like you're chanting the mantra, like the mantras comes in the Rig Veda, then you are chanting the mantras in a specific way uh, told by Sam Veda, and then the rituals associated with that mantra or the god, which is Yajur Veda, and then Athar Veda, which is for mostly practical things like how to treat someone, the magic, the physics, and mental and physical state of people, how to deal with that. But we will, for this purpose of this presentation, we will stick to Rig Veda, Sam Veda, and how it is related to the idea of Sanskrit. So when the Vedas were created, then it was not written. It was transferred from a generation to generation through a repetition. So if I'm the teacher, I will repeat the mantras, and then my disciple will recite it. And it went on for a very, very long time. And it was not formalized. There is no language to write, because if you listen to these kind of mantras, you will realize it is very difficult to write. And I will show you one of the video clips where Imrat Khan, the great musician, Indian musician, he also says, like, there are things which you cannot write and there are things you can write. So how the Sam Vedas or the Yajur Vedas or all the Vedas got into the written form? And here comes the idea of the language of Sanskrit. After the creation of Vedas, it was like after around 1000 years, the Panini comes into picture. Panini, who wrote the grammar of Sanskrit. So the challenge for Panini must be in some ways to make a language or the grammar of a language so that it captures the mantras or the rituals in a way that it keeps it remains it remains intact. So like if I'm saying something, what would be the grammar of the language to keep my intonations in the same way as I have spoken like 2000 years back? So he created a grammar of Sanskrit, and then later the Vedas were written into that language. So this language, the grammar of this language is like what Panini created, and this is what the Sanskrit we know. So now the scientific nature of Sanskrit has been written about, has been told about. And if you want to read more, there's a book by Vikram Chandra, who's not only a literary person, he wrote books like fictions, but also he was a computer programmer as well. He teaches at I think at Berkeley, and he wrote a book called Geek Sublime: The Code of Beauty of Codes. In his book, he explains how Sanskrit grammar is a perfect kind of a grammatic rules. So if you follow those rules, you can, whatever you write in Sanskrit can be read by, let's say, if you go back into the time machine and give your text written according to the grammar of the Sanskrit, anyone from the 2000 years back, he can read it perfectly. The same thing cannot be said about other languages. If you write something in Latin and give it to a person who is from the, like, say, BC 600, he or she may or may not be able to read that words, but in Sanskrit it is possible. So it is like the codes. You write a code in Afghanistan and you can read the code in America, and like if I write a code right now and send it to someone, like say in the past, there are chances that they can be read by people. So here comes the connection of Sanskrit and the codes, the rules. I'm not sure like all the codes are written according to the Sanskrit grammar, and I'm sure it is not. But there are ways. Is it possible to create that kind of patterns from the Sanskrit grammar? And now think of the Indian classical music, which is like coming from the Sam Vedas, and the Vedas are like written on the basis of the Sanskrit grammar. So there is a relationship between the Sanskrit Vedas and the grammar of the Sanskrit. So now I think I need to show some one of the videos which will explain what I'm trying to explain, because I know that in the terms of music and codes it's a bit difficult. This is a recording by a well-known Indologist, Fritz Stahl, who wrote a book in 2008 about discovering the Vedas. He made some recordings of chanting some rituals where they chant some mantras. And please, can you play the Fritz Stahl recording? As you have seen in the video, like the way you speak is very important, and how you repeat. And there are times, there are words which you will not be able to like write, but Sanskrit is a language which tries to make these connections and tries to write. You can write these kind of in Sanskrit. There is another example I would like to give from the book, Vikram Chandra's book, and maybe no, from Fritz Stahl's book. It's a very interesting notion of. So there is like in Sanskrit grammar or Sanskrit, like in the Vedas, the word play, there is not many words. Like with this one alphabet changes and the whole meaning changes. So I'll just give you one shloka or one mantra of some kind. It is like O, Bhu, Bha, Bi. Just notice the end of what I'm trying to say. Like it is, because it just changes one alphabet. So it's called Bhu, Bha, Bhi. So in these three words, the end is changing, and the way you repeat it, it changes the meaning of these words. And this is how it is explained in the Samveda. And Indian music also works like that kind of thing, which have like seven notes, like sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, sa. And then there are like other notes which is like which is changeable. You can make some little changes, and you call it like improvisation. I'm going to again play a little short video by Imrat Khan, where he explains like what is what can be written and what cannot be written even in music, which is the same concept as like Samvedas, incantations, or like how you chant Samvedas. So here's the video.
Now this is very complex, which I played now. Cannot be written down. Impossible. What can be written down is so when the straight notes are there, they can be written down.
So you can say, like, also Imrat Khan is also explaining that there are in the Indian classical music, there are some things which can be taught. Like you can explain like this is what, and there are things like which you intuitively try to do and then improvise. Like within the seven notes, you can improvise a lot, and then you make new things. And this happens because of the grammar of Sanskrit. Like the Sanskrit grammar, it is like the Panini grammar is not a big long book, but if you try to analyze that book and explain, it will be like thousands and thousands of pages. So there's like one page. I just wanted to show you one page from here. It's like, just if you see, there's like one small page here, and you can see like this part. This is like at least like 13 rules in this one paragraph. 13 rules from the Sanskrit grammar from one para. It is called Ashtadhyayi. So things like that, like this, very small, but if you try to make a word following these rules, you can perfectly write new sentences, and then anyone can read that sentence from the past as well. So that was the beauty of the Sanskrit language and coding. How these words make an effect is my next point which I want to talk about is the idea of dhwani and rasas. Why the grammar is important, and why the way you chant or why the way you speak is important it can be explained by the aesthetics of dhwani and rasas. So there are two persons, Anand Vardhan and Ashwa Ghosh, who gave these ideas of dhwani and rasas. Rasas is can be explained like something like a feeling. So when you hear a music or listen to a music or watch a video or see something, so you get some kind of feelings like which say like, oh, I'm sad and I'm like happy. Indian aesthetic theory of rasa says there are like 9 emotions, and in the music or the chants you can create that effect. And then comes the dhwani, which is basically sound. So how you chant is important. So if you're chanting a mantra, so how your pitch should be, and that makes an impact. So if you're chanting a mantra, say I'm not just saying one line from the Hanuman Chalisa, so Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar. So like it can make an impact how you recite this whole chant, because of dhwani, because of the sound, how you make the sound. And how the sound will depend on the Sanskrit grammar. And what grammar is doing is it basically picking up the Samvedas and fitting it into the way it should be told. And now think about the computer codings. Like what we do is like there are certain codes given. So you take those codes and try to solve a new formula. You make like little changes, like little. So I was doing this Python thing, and it was getting very difficult for me because I don't know how to write codes. But I learned that there are like certain codes given, like you can make certain codes and then make changes, like little bit changes, and then you can make it more and more and more and more and more complicated. The same thing happens in the music, and the same thing. Now my question is like, can this thing be done with the literature? There are people who have given me the feedback, and I won't also know like from my own experience, like if you write something in, whether it is in Hindi or in English or any other language, if you read that text and if you hear how it sounds, and if there is a rhythm in what you have written, if you try to read out loud, and a lot of times you pick up the mistakes you have done, like you try to use another word because the word you have used is not giving you the kind of rhythm you wanted. And if your writing is rhythmatic, more or less it might be a beautiful piece of writing. So that is my quest, like how to bring elements of music or the Sanskrit grammar, or like the writing code. Can there be a writing code? And then I met Paul, and Paul was talking about blockchain and all that stuff, and like how the NFTs are working. So we discussed this, like can we pick up some elements of wisdom, pearls of wisdom from the Indian classical music, of this whole idea of permutation and combination within the Indian classical music system, and then put it to like idea of coding. So because like the music system and the Vedas are all about how to understand the nature, like this complex world of whole complex world, which is getting more and more complex day by day with this artificial intelligence is there, automation is there, blockchains there. So how to make sense of all these things? So Paul thinks like it is the Indian music system can be one element of that whole idea of understanding, and it will be helpful for for the blockchain or the NFT or the computers to understand through the language of Sanskrit. My quest is a little like slight diversion. I'm trying to find a rhythm in my writing through the like the windows of these like Indian classical music, a little bit of Sanskrit grammar, a little bit of codings. If that is possible, I can create some kind of rasa in my own writing. So that was my presentation is all about. Thank you very much for listening to me, and thanks all for giving me this opportunity to present this thing. Thank you.